Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
I've been following this. I've not been watching the games. I've just been I'm interested in it just because of couple of Texas Tech guys involved in it, but the Under-19 FIBA World Cup basketball competition continues today and actually gets underway this morning. I'm not sure what the time difference is in Switzerland. I'm sure somebody can tell me on the 8 Morning Center chat line, just like right off the top of their head. Maybe Jeff can. But Germany is going to play today at 7:30 this morning against Canada, so about an hour from now. So they're in warm-ups right now. And, of course, Christian Andersen is playing for Team Germany. He had 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists in their last win over China, 90-66. And then Team USA is going to take on Cameroon. Feels like this should be a layup. This morning they'll play at 10:15, and, of course, Texas Tech head coach Grant McCasland is an assistant on that team. So they're coming off of a dominating win. They're 2-0. Dominated France, which is always good. Beat the Frenchies. So they're 2-0 in group play so far. So we'll be hopefully those two teams can meet up at some point in time. That'd be interesting.
Maybe so.
And Grant McCasland will be able to say, "Here's what this guy does really well." Here's what you need to do to stop him, right?
Yeah, maybe.
And Christian Andersen's going to say, "I know what he's thinking of how they can stop me, but I've got a secret weapon here of how we can beat them." Okay, So that'd be fun to see how that transpires. So we'll visit with Fink at 7:15 about what's a day that changed Texas Tech forever, in which Tech won a national championship, and how that's transpired with things. I don't know what to make of this, Jamie. I saw this yesterday. Wanted to get your take on it, but we saw the news that the BYU quarterback is transferring amidst the civil suit that was filed against him, amidst the fact that he was going to be suspended for 7 games by BYU. And now all of a sudden, the civil suit against Jake Ratzliff is gone. It's over. It's settled. It's so there's no more lawsuit. And so he's, I guess, now free to fly about the country as best he wants. So either they came to some kind of an agreement, but the parties jointly agreed to dismiss with prejudice, ending the case, which was filed last month. None of the parties, according to this ESPN article, were available for immediate comment. So now he plans to transfer from BYU, and somebody's going to pick him up, and I guess everything will be okie dokie.
Well, you would think if there was just a payout here, that he would have done this already.
Yeah.
He would have done this a long time ago. And so it didn't get to this with BYU.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't sound like it's a situation where he just paid her to go away.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Otherwise, again, wouldn't he have done that a long time ago?
Sure, you would have thought so.
This would have never been made public, and he'd be heading to Big 12 Media Days next week.
No criminal charges have been filed against him, and basically the response by him and how things have gone on it seems like an extortion attempt, based on the idea that he was going to develop into a big NFL prospect. So sounds like a money grab, which it's bad for all concerned. It's bad for him, and it's a terrible look for her, if that's the case.
It's not a terrible look for her because nobody knows who she is.
Yeah, but I mean they do, but they don't. Yeah. But it's more on him because obviously his name's been dragged through the mud.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not here to tell you he did it or he didn't do it. what I am here to say is that these cases make my stomach turn because, it makes us doubt or question legit ones, and that's where it really is sad. Mm-hmm. When these things legitimately happen, and I don't know if this one legitimately did or not. Don't know.
Yeah.
But it makes you question them, and that is the last thing we want, is to be questioning victims.
Right.
Yeah, we want to be able to be 100% supportive of them and believe them. And when there are claims like this one that appear from the outside to be, they didn't have enough evidence to press any charges or keep pursuing this, it sure does make you question it. And then, again, it just... the next time one of these comes up, you'll be like, oh, no, here we go again. And it may be completely legitimate. And that's totally unfair. They're all completely different situations. And that's, I don't know, that just makes the whole thing sad. Yeah. I have no idea. I read that there was, days and weeks after this happened, the two were exchanging friendly text messages and all the above, and so it just really makes you question the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, he'll get a chance now to move on, and that's probably the best for all concerned. This is, I think, well said here. Unfortunately, with all these young kids making serious money, there'll be a major increase in false allegations and claims of misconduct. That from Yankee Raider. I think the most, Jeff was talking the other day about, interesting 30 for 30s, and I think one of the most interesting 30 for 30s is how this first generation of pay for play players is going to handle this. To look back and see guys that, 15, 20 years from now, how did they handle it? How did they use the money? Are they all, did they use it well? Did they save it well? Are they set themselves up for life? Or I would have been if I was 18, 19, 20 and had that much money, did it wreck a lot of kids? Yeah. Because I fear that it would have wrecked me. Yeah, if you look at the numbers from most...
I think it'll be very interesting to see what that looks like.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers for NFL players that once they retire and, where they are 7-8 years down the line, the majority of them file for bankruptcy.
This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
2025. Here's Jeff McGuire with the flip of the calendar and this day in sports history.
Going to start us off in 1920. When I say Walter Johnson, Washington Senator, you think of a really, really good pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Well, you should. But it was on this day in 1920 that he no-hit the Boston Red Sox 1-0 at Fenway Park. It was the only no-hitter of his illustrious career.
Oh, wow.
In 1945, first Major League Baseball superstar to return from World War II is Hank Greenberg. He would homer in his first game as Detroit beats the Philadelphia A's 9-5. 1982, Cal Ripken Jr. makes his first of his record 2,216 consecutive Major League Baseball starts at shortstop for the Baltimore Orioles.
Go Cal.
2016, former Red Raider Josh Tomlin gets a hard luck no decision after going 6 innings of one-run ball in a 2-1 Indians win over the Blue Jays. And in 2018, NBA superstar LeBron James agrees to a 4-year, $154 million deal with the LA Lakers moving from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I put this one in there because he picked up his player option for next year.
He did. Now people are talking about him getting traded.
Yeah, and they're not really that happy with him picking that up like that because it's a ton of money. And I think they would have rather... Like you said, I think they're going to trade him. Maybe he'll go back to Cleveland.
I'll be shocked if they trade him.
Okay.
Happy Creative Ice Cream Flavor Day, International Fruit Day, and National Ginger Snap Day.
What's a creative scoop for you?
I don't know. I just like the same 32 flavors everybody else does. I don't know how creative they are.
I didn't know if there was one that...
Rocky Road's got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Okay.
By definition, mint, chocolate, and chip.
Mm-hmm.
That would be 3. Happy birthday to Pamela Anderson, who's 58. Liv Tyler, 48. Dan Aykroyd, 73. Nelson Cruz, 73. Excuse me, Nelson Cruz is 45.
Wow.
And Alan Ruck, you might know him as Cameron Fry from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, is 69.
I would have thought Dan Aykroyd was older than 73.
I probably would have too.
He's had quite the career. I mean, but it's kind of sobering that he's 73 with all he's done. I kind of look at, I'm 64, I'm 9 years younger than him. I've not really done much.
1979.
I don't know what to say to you, man.
No, nothing. You say, yeah, you're right.
No, you're great, man. You've been killing it for 64 years. Way to go.
No.
1979, the very first personal stereo cassette player called the Sony Walkman debuts on sale. It would spark a revolution in portable electronics. The transistor radio had been part of the lexicon in modern technology for a long period of time at this point. Mm-hmm. However, the Sony Walkman didn't present a breakthrough in technology when it was developed, as almost all of it was part of something else or being tested at that time. How it started? The chairman of Sony was taking long flights and a music lover, and asked his development team to come up with a portable cassette player. They did the test unit, I guess is the way to put it. Had huge headphones, specific batteries for it. He took his long flight from Japan to Los Angeles. Of course, the batteries died halfway through, because if you ever had a Walkman, that's what they did.
They chewed it up, yep.
Loved every second of it, and thus the development of the Walkman was born. And this day in sports history.
All right, 6:49 this morning here on the Morning Drive. Thoughts, comments, Yates Flooring Center chat line. Go to WT973.com for that of the mobile app. The Visual Edge IT hotline is open too at 806-771-0973. Just a couple of follow-ups of kind of something I said right before the commercial break. So kind of looks like the actual number for bankruptcies for NFL players is about 16%. But you look at various articles, and they'll say that 75 to 80% of NFL players go broke or have financial stress pretty shortly after they've ended their NFL career, depending on how long you played, obviously, and how much money you made. But it is a shocking number that even 16% would be filing for bankruptcy. And then
when you consider the amount of money that is being made.
Yeah. And then the 75% that are experiencing some kind of distress. And Sports Illustrated, Forbes did an article on this a number of years ago, and I don't really think it's changed a whole lot. It cites lack of competent financial planning. It cites supporting a village where you've got all these players that are supporting hangers-on, whether it's family members or friends or extended family.
It's definitely my problem.
Divorce, which a lot of it is their own doing because they've screwed around, and now they have alimony and child support and things along those lines. Lack of awareness about how rapidly a career can end, and then also lack of preparation for a second career after they've played. Because a lot of these guys are done at, could be 31, 32 years old, maybe even younger, and they're like, okay, now what am I going to do?
And they never finished off their education yet.
Right, all those things. They got another 30, 35 years, and a lot of these guys go by restaurants and things like that, and then don't get involved in them, and then they get stolen from, and all those kinds of things, or the restaurant goes belly up, and it's their name that's on it, or the bar or business, fill in the blank. So it's the struggle's real, but I mean a lot of it is their own doing. But yeah, I think it will be interesting. That'd be a good thesis study for somebody's PhD or master's degree in the business school.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm sure you'll have some that will be really, really smart with it and set themselves up for life, and you'll have others that it will not do so. Don't do well with that at all, and it'll end up going poorly for them years to come, and then probably the majority are somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And at some point in time too, somebody's going to have.
I mean, you talk about like David Bailey. I mean, he may be getting $2 million from us, but he's already got a Stanford degree.
Right.
So you would like to think David Bailey has set himself up for success in life afterwards. Baron Morton's already graduated. He's got himself a Texas Tech degree. I mean, these guys like that. I mean, even if you do spend all your money, you still have a degree to fall back upon, and hopefully that there's a career or job that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope they don't spend all the money, though.
Right. I with regard to my comment on LeBron James, it's really more about the amount of money that he exercised with his player option, and the fact that the Lakers are really more making moves for the future and building around Luka Doncic than they are trying to compete for a championship next year. Because let's face it, LeBron's years are damn near over, and you can't sacrifice your future for 1 year. Plenty of teams have tried to do that and have not been successful. So that's why, there's a quote that from LeBron's people that say, "We understand the difficulty in winning now while preparing for the future. We do want to evaluate what's best for LeBron at this stage in his life and career. He wants to make every season he has left count." And the Lakers understand that. They are supportive and want what's best for him. So I think it's one of those deals where we'll see what happens over the next few months with regard to him and his future in Los Angeles. And maybe somebody will make a big trade that says, "Hey, we're LeBron away from winning," and they might do something along those lines. That's kind of what I was trying to make there, the point there.
The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
And Texas Tech, the Lady Raiders would go on to win that game over Ohio State and win the national championship on April the 4th, 1993. A day that changed things. And that's one of those days, Jamie, that we look at and go, okay, the world was a little bit different after that day because of winning a national championship. Much like, you kind of think about softball in that same vein. Even though they didn't win the national championship, getting to the national championship game and what this program did this past year has changed our outlook on that, and maybe we'll look at that at some point as well. But the focus today is Lady Raider basketball. And we go to the Visual Edge IT hotline. We have the voice of Lady Raider basketball, Mark Finkner. Good morning, Fink.
Good morning, Chuck. Good morning, Jamie. How are we this morning?
Doing great. I just want to ask Fink questions about Chuck, just to be completely honest with you.
It's probably for another.
It's open, I guess.
For another. So you were in school at that point in time, correct?
I was. Well, I had actually graduated in December of '92, but that school year that we won the national championship, I was in school that fall, getting wrapped up. But yes, I mean, being in school, from '88 to '92 and seeing the ascent of this program was, it was kind of neat to see. Not everybody on campus, unfortunately, even paid attention, but as they got better, then obviously more eyes turned to this program, and ultimately you started selling out the Coliseum. And, man, I mean, you get 8,000 in there every night, and so many of those programs that Tech was playing, they sure weren't used to that.
Mark, was it a bit of a surprise that they went on this run, or once you got Cheryl Swoops in the fold and mixed it with the great coaching of Marcia Sharp, did it kind of feel like you were heading in this direction?
Well, you always thought you had the chance because as you're building the program, and I mean, you go back just a little bit in the early '80s when you had Carolyn Thompson, a Cheryl Swoops type player before Cheryl, but just people didn't see her play. And she still holds so many of the records that Tech has in women's basketball. But then as Marcia built the program back in the late '80s into the early '90s, still recruiting West Texas as hard as she did, and you mixed in a couple of others, like a Stephanie Scott from Plano. You mix players in there, and then of course you get Cheryl from South Plains, because obviously, I mean, we all know the story. She went to Texas for a month or so, leaves, goes to South Plains, plays there, is a superb player there. You get her to come here as a junior in the 91-92 season. You get to the Sweet 16, and yes, you thought it was possible, but obviously, you still had to deal with Texas. They dealt with them. You had to deal with Stanford. You had lost to them in the Sweet 16 in 91-92. You lost to them in the season opener at Stanford that year. You thought you were going to get them, and then your now Big 12 compatriot Colorado did you a huge favor. And I'm not saying Tech couldn't have beat Stanford in the regional finals in 92-93 in Missoula, but when you got Colorado instead of Stanford, that definitely helped your cause after beating USC in the Sweet 16, and then you just boat raced Colorado by 25 in the regional finals to get to Atlanta. So it was, Jamie, to answer your question, it was thought that they could do that, but again, you got to have. I mean, like in any tournament, you got to have the right draw, and you got to be playing well, and obviously Tech was doing all of those things.
And I really think the turning point obviously was that 91-92 season, and I just remember some of my buddies calling up the ticket office, because there were big long lines there at the ticket office, which then was on the north end of Jones Stadium, and once they sold out the allotment, then there was the allotment for the other teams. And I remember I had friends calling Stanford, claiming to be Stanford alumni, and buying tickets from the Stanford ticket office over the phone, which, then they had to mail the tickets, or you had to pick them up at will call. But that Lady Raider fever kind of, that was starting to really generate at the end of that 91-92 season, and then going on to those games that you hosted, and then of course setting it up for the next year. But then what happened afterwards was still really good. I mean, I think the explosion of little girls playing basketball in this town, the leagues themselves, everything seemed to rise up to a different level, because girls wanting to be Lady Raiders. And I know the following year, the little girl basketball team that I coached, they wanted to be the Lady Raiders, and every team wanted to be the Lady Raiders and wear red and black, right. And that was a big change.
No doubt about it. I mean, it really was neat, and in covering them, working in Plainview, I mean, I would come and cover Lady Raider games regularly and get post game audio. I mean, just like you guys do today. I mean. You did that, and I mean, press row was full. I mean, there wasn't a seat to be had at a lot of those games, because there was such interest in the program, and it was, obviously here in Lubbock, but I mean, you would see someone from the Dallas Morning News or the Fort Worth Star-Telegram or the Houston Chronicle show up. I mean, they did capture the state's attention after, kind of knocking Texas off the top of the mountain, so to speak, in women's basketball in the early 90s.
And how did it build after that, Mark? I mean, when you looked at the recruiting and how it helped this program, and obviously went on that long run with all those Sweet 16 games, or trips, I should say, right. Just feel like it just took off after that?
Oh, no question. I mean, the fact that you were recruiting Lubbock, you were recruiting West Texas, and it's obviously still important to do that, but you were able to get a foothold in the major metroplex, in the major metro areas like the metroplex, like Houston, where, I mean, you got tons of great players as well through the years. I mean, Julie Lake, Renee Hannibal, although she wasn't a metroplex player, but from, nearby. Obviously Lynette Pearson, one of the all-time greats from Houston. You were definitely able to get indoors that you were not able to get into before. There is no question about that.
And I think the frustrating thing is that since you made it to the national championship game, you haven't been able to get past the Sweet 16, and part of that is kind of, you did it to yourself just from the standpoint that other programs in the Big 12 or the Southwest Conference or other schools in other conferences around the country saw what Texas Tech did and made investments into their women's basketball programs, and the tide rose all around them, and you just haven't been able to get back to that spot. And you had some very frustrating losses in Sweet 16 play that, man, if you could have gotten over the hump and gotten back to the Final Four or gotten back to a national championship game, maybe you wouldn't have the drought that you have today.
Yeah, I mean, 2000, you got to the Elite Eight against Tennessee, but you're playing them basically in their backyard in Memphis. I made that road trip actually, and watched that game, and you know, Tennessee had about 3,000 fans. We had about 300, and we were making more noise than their fans, and they were very entitled. They were an entitled fan base because they were Tennessee. You had that one in the Elite Eight, and you're right, Chuck. There were some tough losses. 98 in the second round here, but I will say this: that to your point, the fact that what Tech did in 1993 changed the game, changed the coverage, and put women's basketball on a higher plateau than we had seen previously, much like we're seeing with Caitlin Clark right now in the WNBA, whether those in the league want to truly admit that or not.
All right, Fink, good to hear your voice.
Same here, brother, man. Hey, I'm going to see you soon, and, man, I can hardly wait for November 3.
We'll have Fink on where Jamie can ask you questions about me at some point in time. He's just really.
Tomorrow at 7:15 is fine.
No. That's Mark Finkner, everybody, on the Visual Edge IT hotline, voice of Lady Raider basketball.
This is the Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3. Presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Jamie's question of the day on Double T 97.3 is brought to you by Connecticut of West Texas.
All right, guys, pretty simple question for you. With the recent news with BYU and their quarterback and having to go to a backup for their season, feel like that was the toughest home game on the schedule for the Red Raiders. What do you feel like the Red Raider football home schedule record will be?
The home record will be, man. I will tell you this. I'm still concerned about BYU because I think that they've got, and I realize that, you know, all these coaches that coach in the Big 12 are really good coaches. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten to where they are. So, to say that they're going to be great coaches, that's another thing. I think you're going to go undefeated, Jamie. I think you're going to be 7-0. I would tell you that I still think your toughest game is going to be BYU because I think that they'll have somebody coached up by then. You don't play them until November the 8th. So I still think that's going to be your toughest matchup because they lost one player, but I feel like they can coach around that player. I realize that the quarterback's pretty big, but by that point in time, whoever the quarterback is will be established, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. So I'm going to say you're going to go 7-0 at home.
I agree with you that with the BYU change, your toughest home game got easier. I'm still unrationally worried about Oregon State as your first big test of the year. And I'm going to say 6-1. If you win that game, you're 7-0. But I'm not ready to say you're going 3-0 in non-conference play yet.
So if we were picking this game
today, it's a loss.
It's a loss. And you have no reasonable rationale behind that other than you just don't feel good about it.
I don't feel good about it. I feel zero good about it. Now, after the first 2 weeks, that could change. I could see something on the field that this team looks like it's different than what we've seen in the past, and Oregon State could look worse than what I'm perceiving them to be. But as we sit here right now, I'm still worried about Oregon State.
I'm at 7-0. I think the toughest game on your schedule at home now is not BYU. I think it's Kansas. but I still think you win that game. So I think I think BYU was going to be tough, but I think that's a tough game. But, obviously they have a lot of season before November 8th when they come here to play the Red Raiders. I just, those to me feel like the games that, really good quarterbacks win. Mm-hmm. You go on the road and beat what should be a top 20 Red Raider team. It's going to take some really good quarterback play, and I just don't have that confidence right now with BYU, and I do have that confidence for the Red Raiders playing at home and knowing how big that game will be. So, yeah, I think Kansas is the toughest one. Kansas is this big question mark for me because I think they showed at the end of last season that they can be a really good football team when their quarterback's not turning the ball over, and they can be an explosive offense, and that scares me a little bit. I know they lost their running back, but I think Kansas is now the toughest home game for the Red Raiders.
Okay. All right, so if you have a take on that, hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Go to the Double T 97.3 mobile app. It's presented by Happy State Bank. We get this. Utah will have something to prove. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we get this, which this is true. I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. Chuck, they're quoting me now saying, I'm worried about our team due to our hurt quarterback coming back. True, that's correct. Also, Chuck, the other team has no quarterback, but I think it should say I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about them, but I'm worried about them. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Kind of.
The real question for you is, who is Kent State's quarterback?
I don't know.
So you're worried about that.
I'm just.
Do they have Texas Tech ties? I mean, that's what we got to worry about, right?
Mm-hmm. Don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think Utah will have something to prove too. Mm-hmm. But Utah's a road game. We were just talking about home ones.
Yeah, we're just talking about the home games. Somebody says it's not unrational
to be worried about Oregon State.
Yeah, it's not unrational, or maybe irrational. However that works. But it's just your gut, right? It's just your gut feel, right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't.
It's not like you broke down the too deep of the Beavers, right?
No, and I'm not even going to start that until maybe the week before, because anything you're seeing now, it's against each other. Mm-hmm. And one time when their offensive line can be really good, which makes their defensive line look bad, but when they actually play people, they look like the purple people eaters from the Vikings in the 60s. Like, anything can happen when you're facing each other. I'm not holding any stock into what we have seen from practices. I need to see game stuff. I need to see what happens on the field when it matters.
Yeah, the challenge is I'm not sure that you're going to see anything in Arkansas Pine Bluff or Kent State that's going to make you. I think it could only make you feel worse, not better.
Did we feel great about the non-conference last year?
No. What I'm saying is,
so that would be different.
I think
if I see this team go blow those two teams out of the water, mm-hmm. Yes, they are not as good as what you played last year. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't go into the Oregon State game going, "Whew, man, I sure hope we figure out something here," like we did last year. And if we see Oregon State just be rolling to here at 0-2, yeah, I'm going to feel a lot differently about that game.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened yet.
We get this. I think we need a blowout win for the Pine Bluff game. We have had close games against weaker opponents in week one in the past. Yes. No matter who the coach was, we seem to have had to have that challenge. This Oregon State worries me because the first two games will be over by halftime.
Yeah.
There's some fairness to that as well.
And first time you play somebody with a pulse.
Right, with a pulse. Yep. Yeah, with a pulse. That's it. That'd be on your headstone. I have no pulse.
Actually, I think it'll be Here Lies Jamie Lent.
Yeah.
Tell Texas Tech to play somebody with a pulse, right?
The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Hey, good morning, and we're hopeful that you're off to a good start today. Maybe you've already been hard at it this morning. If so, great. If not, time to hit it and get it. Good morning with Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire. I'm Chuck Heinz. We come to you from the First United Bank studio. Doesn't necessarily feel like the 1st of July. especially with all the rain that we've had and kind of what's coming today and maybe even tomorrow. But the calendar still says the 1st of July. Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's there.
It's coming along.
It does feel like felt like June took a while for me. So
okay.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It does feel like July. Feels like it should have been here sooner.
Okay, all right. And the 4th will be here on Friday. So hopefully you're getting ready for your celebrations, however those come about, and whatever it is that you like to do with your group. We'll have baseball all day on the 4th of July. We'll have Yankees and the Mets on 100.7 The Score. We'll have the Rangers playing at San Diego on Friday afternoon, early evening, 5:30, and then cap it all off with the Dodgers and the Astros from Los Angeles. So both the Rangers and the Astros out in California. All right, I wanted to get your take on this because I think we're going to have more of these kinds of conversations as we get closer to the various media days. Big 12 will have theirs next week, and Jamie and Choice will be there. As Jamie mentioned, our coverage brought to you by Accurate Air. And we'll be there on Tuesday when the Red Raiders are there with their group. But Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, had a conversation, an interview with Fox Sports' Joel Klatt this week. And one of the things that he said that I thought was interesting is they want the postseason to get closer to a professional sports model from a postseason standpoint. He said that's an obvious goal for his conference, which starts with stressing the importance of conference finish and record in the regular season. He said on Monday, I want more teams to feel like they're chasing the opportunity to compete for a national championship. Teams can get hot late in the season. The fact that they lose a game early shouldn't disqualify them to play more meaningful conference games as late as possible. The Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships with Michigan and then Ohio State last fall. What do you think about more of a more, quote, professional model for the playoffs? And what does that look like?
You have 2 sides and they come together. So you have 2 different brackets and they come together. Is that the professional model?
To me, it almost makes it sound like we're going to have an AFC and an NFC conference, and we're going to get into this, big division, so to speak, or you're going to have divisions within that, whether maybe you just call it the Big Ten North and the Big Ten South and the Big 12 this and the Big 12 that and the SEC this and the SEC that, and you're fighting for position based on record and who you're playing as opposed to a committee. That to me would be a professional model. It's like, okay, we're just going to put everybody in. We're going to put all these conferences in divisions, and then we're going to have everybody play each other as best they can over the course of a 12-game season. And you're going to have division champions. You're going to have wild cards, and you're going to take it totally out of the committee's hands. I think I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, that works.
I mean. Now, what the Big Ten wants and what his thought is still going back to a 16-team model with 4 from the SEC and 4 from the Big Ten, 2 from the ACC and 2 from the Big 12, 1 group of 5 team, and then 3 at-large selections. But they haven't come to any kind of agreement on this yet because of wrenches that have been thrown in, whether it's by the Big 12 or the SEC not liking this, or the Big Ten feeling like they have, this notion of 4 may not be enough for the SEC, but it's fine for the Big Ten. And then what does the Big 12 and ACC have to say about it? I just think we're going to hear more and more of this. He also broached the idea, Jamie, of play-in games for the Big Ten during conference championship weekend. He said, since there are 17 teams in the conference and many don't play each other over a 9-game league slate, it's another data point, so to speak, for the selection committee to try and grade accordingly, and it makes their job difficult. That'd be interesting.
Give them extra games?
Yeah, I guess. But, I mean, that's kind of interesting if you had a, quote, play-in game. I'm not sure how that would work because you can't just do it for one conference. You've got to do it for others as well, you know. But
yeah, it's crazy talk there.
It is a little crazy talk, but I think we're gonna have some crazy talk. He said we'll stipulate the committee does the best job they can. This is not to say the committee doesn't do a good job. They make incredibly difficult decisions based on data. This year in the Big 10, we'll cross over. He said, I think we play 4 Big 12, 3 SEC, 3 ACC, and 2 Notre Dame games. That's not a lot of conference play among us with a body of work. He said, but when you start comparing teams that don't have a head-to-head and you have very little data to look at between leagues, that becomes really difficult. It does. Mm-hmm. He did say an out-of-conference loss for a Big 10 elite team might affect seeding, but should not affect access down the road. He wants to continue to enhance out-of-conference scheduling. And he cites the Week 1 game with Texas at Ohio State, which in previous years, the loser of that game almost gets knocked out of any kind of national championship contention. We've seen that happen over the years, but not so much in recent time.
Not now that the playoff is extended.
Yeah, but it was also always if you're going to lose, you want to lose early because the late season loss is the one that knocks you out of it.
Yeah, but I mean, when you only had 4 teams in the playoff, I mean, all losses were
huge,
very, very big, crippling.
Yeah. This from the H. Fleming Center chat line. Their professional model is just the Big 10 and SEC, and that's it. Well, it is going to be interesting to see how this all gets divided up because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's money and it's power, and really it's more money than it is anything else because everybody's starved for money. It's like it's almost a Pride Land situation. No matter how much money you have, the hyenas eat it all up. Okay. There's too many hyenas eating all the cash in college sports. They got to figure out how to get the Pride Land back. That's going to be really hard.
This has been the Morning Drive Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet973.com.